8:26, morning to you. Now, government figures have revealed that changes to the highway code, they were brought in a couple of years ago actually, have led to a surge in the number of fixed penalties issued to drivers.
And these changes include increased priority for pedestrians and cyclists, as well as closing a loophole surrounding the use of mobile phones behind the wheel. So today we're asking, are drivers being victimised yet again?
Well, let's talk to second-hand car dealer Danny Kelly and the founder of Climate Explorers, Isaac Kenyon. Morning to you both. Danny, what do you reckon?
Hi. Good morning, both. Well, look, it's a punitive world out there if you have the temerity to own a car and get behind the wheel. I can tell you that, Stephen. And as far as the new highway code is concerned, this was introduced 2 years ago. And I would hazard a guess that 80% of the population didn't even know what the hell the new introduction was with the highway code. And there lies the problem. Whether you're a pedestrian who is being beckoned across a busy junction by a kind-hearted motorist, only to be confused when a car on the other side of the road doesn't stop for you, or whether you're a motorist who's trying to turn left at a T-junction and you're having a hand thrust in front of your windscreen by a belligerent highway code knowing pedestrian. It's confusing out there, and I feel sorry for the motorist, I really do.
Yeah, because just to explain, the new rule says that they've got priority rather than you, and the only way to actually sort of make sure that they've got that priority is sort of, I suppose, making eye contact with them and hopefully you both understanding each other.
Yeah, and also, well, that's a great point, because the pedestrian may wonder what the hell you're looking at and why you're staring at them and the hand gestures you're making. And they're thinking, well, who is this random fat bald guy in a Ford Mondeo staring at me, beckoning me across the road? What the hell's he got to do with my pedestrian activity? And there's the problem. But I take you back to a more serious point, and it's the fact that roads are so busy. And if I, as a kind-hearted motorist, say, come on, cross the road, and then all of a sudden they cross the road, they could get hit by a car on the other side of the road. It's so confusing. And when this law was introduced, or the highway code was updated, I think that the government, Anna Stevens, should have blanket bombed the whole of the UK with letters saying, look, if you're a pedestrian or if you're a motorist, here are the new rules. Don't be surprised if someone's going to stop and ask you to cross the road.
Yeah, or not introduced it at all, because it seems crackers, frankly.
Yeah, it's rubbish.
Isaac, what do you make of all of this? I mean, these new rules and regs are brought in. Drivers are paying the cost in terms of more penalties. Is that fair?
I think in the bigger picture, we're trying to move to a more pedestrian and cycle-centric sort of way of living, where they are starting to see that by making the roads slightly safer and allowing more pedestrian and cycle traffic, it creates a more sustainable and active travel world. There are different mechanisms to do that. One of them has been through this as a way of kind of driving that, trying to make it safer, trying to make it a place where people can feel that they can cross a road safely, trying to allow cyclists to have a bit more priority so that people are more encouraged to do cycling or more encouraged to walk.
Yeah, well, forgive me, Isaac, for interrupting, but I mean, it would be safer for pedestrians if they stood on the curb and waited till there were no cars before they crossed the road, wouldn't it? I mean, that seems pretty basic to me.
There is that argument, but there's also the argument if the whole entire culture changed and we all focused on allowing pedestrians to cross, so if we all had the same mindset, then perhaps it would be safe to do this new way of rule.
I'm going to hazard a guess that Isaac isn't a motorist. Isaac, you're not a driver, are you? Or if you are a driver, you drive very few miles, because I would love to live in this idealistic heavenly world that you project and you hope for, but it's just not possible. There are millions of cars on the road, mate, and if you drive in towns and city centres, maybe an idyllic little village in Yorkshire would be ideal for this idealistic image that you have. But in towns and city centres, mate, you know, there's so many cars on the road, and you're going to have to remove them until, before anything like that can actually occur.
Yeah, I'm a motorist. I do drive a car, but what I'm getting at is that I think this is one of the sort of stepping stones to maybe building more infrastructure to make it safer as well. So just these rules are the beginnings of something that might move a bit further along. In other countries, We're seeing lots of segregated cycle paths and things like that. This sort of mindset of pedestrian first and cycle first is probably where we need to get to if we want to create a more sustainable place, encourage active travel and sustainable transportation, especially in cities. We shouldn't really have this many cars in cities. There's more than enough ways to get around public transport.
Can I ask you both about a video that's gone viral, really? Everybody's talking about it. It's about the introduction of low traffic areas, and a couple in a house that's slightly to the left of the screen, their child was unable to breathe, and they called 999, and the ambulance couldn't get to them because of these low traffic area bollards that prevented the ambulance getting them. So there we see the two ambulance workers. They had to trudge down the road, lugging all of their very heavy equipment, while the ambulance, which you saw a bit earlier, and we might see again now, the ambulance, there it is in the background, couldn't go down that road. It had to do a detour and arrived minutes later. Now, there's an instance of something that seems good, a low traffic area. They've got bollards up to prevent lots of cars going down that road, but it actually stopped an ambulance. And this has happened in other areas. Isaac, first of all, you answer me. Is it a good idea, or is it actually a very dangerous thing?
I think if the bollards could be lowered, or if the ambulance has the power to be able to remove the bollards in some way, then actually I think it could work both ways. But currently, yes, that is a clear difficulty for getting emergency services to places in need if you've got these bollards in the way. But the way it was implemented could have perhaps been implemented a bit better, so that we could think through these consequential situations that may happen later, like an ambulance having to get down this road. How can we make that still have the bollard so that we're promoting that sort of low amount of traffic, but also allow for emergency services to get in when they need to?
Danny, what do you think?
There needs to be more work on that.
Well, I think Isaac raises a great point about having something a structure that is movable, but I would suggest that maybe a lot of the residents don't actually want the damn things, but they feel peer pressured and emotionally blackmailed into accepting them, when inevitably there'll be some sort of liberal green councillor knocking on their door saying, can we have your support for a massive bollard at each end of the street? Looking objectively at it, and if the ambulance driver, they should have known about the obstruction. So unless that road was obstructed on each end, and I'm not sure about LTNs, whether they're obstructed at each end, I'm just not sure, then that is a consequence of people saying, let's have a low traffic neighbourhood, let's not have a rat run. But if someone has a cardiac arrest, you are aware that the ambulance is going to have to park 400 yards up the road, and you're going to have to be carried on a stretcher. So it might have been bad negotiation around the town centre for the ambulance driver, but these LTNs, they're not that popular. If you just Google LTN news, you'll see in the northeast, in Newcastle, neighbours are fed up with it. They really are. They're fed up with this ideology that, harks back to the 1950s, before cars really were everywhere on the road. Neighbours aren't happy with it, but I get why they're there, because kids want to play in safety. I get that, but this is the gritty reality. People might lose their lives.
Yeah, OK. We've got to leave it there, you two, but good to talk to you both. Danny Kelly, Isaac Kenyon, thanks very much.
Thank you. Just to say, in that